when a woman walked up to me and she said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Ma'am, I'm the speaker." She said, "Really?" "Yes, ma'am. As a matter of fact, I'm the keynote speaker." "You don't say." "No, ma'am, I don't say." "Well, you must be a nervous speaker." "Ma'am, I don't even think about it anymore." She said, "Well, you are in the ladies' room, so think about that." I'll try not to be too cocky when I do this positively outrageous service stuff today.
Andrew, you just heard T. Scott Gross speak possibly for the first time?
Yes, it was the first time.
So what'd you think?
Phenomenal. I mean, I've not laughed so hard in such a long time. My side is aching. But also, not only was I tremendously entertained, but it really was inspiring and made me rethink about how I present and the importance of storytelling and how you can bring the audience in. He did it very well. He gave several great examples, and so it was full of good content as well. It was very inspiring and highly entertaining.
You can go home and say, "This is what is positively outrageous service. Who wants to play?" Walked into my restaurant one day. Christian came out. He said, "Come here. I've got something for you." I said, "What is it, Christian?" He said, "I have a magic trick." "Well, I like magic tricks." He said, "Stick out your hand." I stuck out my hand. He takes this big fat blue felt tip marker and puts a glob in the palm of my hand. I said, "Christian, so far, I do not like this trick." I said, "Christian, you're going to tell me that this big fat blue glob of felt tip marker is a mouse and that a cat comes in down here and scares the mouse and then draw a big blue line up the boss's arm. Son, you're going to find out what it's like to be served as an hors d'oeuvre." He said, "Oh, you know that trick." "Yeah, I was in 4th grade once myself. I wouldn't try it if I were you." He said, "Well, I'm sorry you do not like that trick." I said, "Well, I do not like that trick." He said, "Your customers do." I beg your pardon? We've been doing it on the drive-thru all day long. Swell. Who had lunch at Church's Chicken in Kerrville, Texas today? All the ones with the blue stripe up their arm. "Christian, you can't go drawing on people. That's not right." Went over to my briefcase. I got a card trick called Two-Card Monte. I showed him how to do it. He said, "I like that. Can I have that trick?" Now, here's the point. I could have said everybody's going to get a magic trick. Could have. But we're all not magicians. We're not all dancers. We're not all comedians. We're not all speakers. We're not all great mechanics. We had a magic summer. I'm waiting on a guy at the end of summer. Customers got involved with this. It was so incredible. I wait on this guy at the end of summer. I take his money, give him his food, thank him for coming in. He said, "Excuse me." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Where's my magic trick?" I said, "Sorry, I don't have anything with me today." He said, "I do." I said, "Do you really?" "I love magic tricks." He said, "Well, stick out your hand." Next point is you got to let people use their own mind. You got to let them think. You got to design the job so that they can think. The problem is we're so afraid we're going to miscalculate a dime that we don't let people count change anymore or do routine things that used to be routine 20, 30 years ago. Anybody here ever want to just shake a 16-year-old? Let me show you how to do it without leaving a bruise. Slip into the fast food restaurants of America late at night. Remove the amount tendered key from the cash register. Be the first one in the next morning. Place an order for $2.28. Hand them a $5 bill and 3 pennies. They will self-destruct. I had a kid working for me, and I'm working the drive-thru, and he's looking over my shoulder. He said, "How do you do that?" I said, "Oh, it's simple. You just, instead of entering the amount tendered, you just hit the amount tendered key. The drawer opens. Count back the change. It's faster, more fun." He said, "No, how do you know how much change to give them?" I said, "I'm sorry, it's a secret. Only old people know how to do this."
Scott Gross today was one of the most educational and informative people that I have ever been around. But more importantly, he gave us great messages with amazing humor. That's so important because now I can remember it because I laughed so hard. And it certainly made me want to write it down. And it gave me some material for the future.
The year is 1992, and my wife, Buns, sends me out to buy a new vehicle. Now, the hot vehicle in 92 was the new 1992 Ford Exploder. Some of you may have purchased a Ford Exploder. And I went down and bought it, picked it out just the only way I knew how to pick one out. I said, "I'll take that one, it's pretty." Well, the sales mangler apparently felt sorry for me because I didn't ask all the appropriate questions. And so we have to go out and talk man to man about this car. I don't care about the car. Give me the keys, give me the paperwork, give me some gas, I just want out. But no, he has to raise the hood and he's telling me all about the engine. I'm sitting there thinking, look, I knew it had one, what's your point? Can we talk about the drivetrain and the suspension and the towing package and the, I don't know, all the braking systems? And we get around back behind the vehicle and he says, "Mr. Gross, so far you haven't been all that impressed, have you?" I said, "Not really." He said, I've got something for you. He opens up the hatch and he opens up a little cover over the wheel well. He says, right here, sir, if you're ever on your way to someplace important in your new 1992 Ford Explorer and you have a flat tire, right in here, sir, is your jack stand, your jack handle, jacking instructions, and he reaches in and up to about his elbow and he fishes out a cheap pair of white cotton work gloves. These things could not have been 69, 79 cents on a good day. He said, if you're ever on your way to someplace important and you have a flat tire, we have thought of everything at Ford Motor Company. You will not have to get your hands dirty. Now, I'm buying a $20-some thousand vehicle, and for the first time I say, wow, over what? The stupid gloves. When I got home and talked to my neighbors, what do you think was the first thing I showed them? The gloves. I realize in hindsight you don't have to be all that impressed because on a Ford Explorer you don't actually change tires, they just peel off on a random basis. But it's the little stuff that makes a big difference. It's the little stuff. And our customers' expectations are changing. But the question is, if you had a policy that said you would do whatever it takes to make things right when things go wrong, would somebody take advantage of you, yes or no? Sure, some of them will. Do you have to worry about them? No. Why? Because that's why there's hell. Just look them in the eye, say, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, and in your heart you're thinking, you're going to hell.
I'm just fascinated by Scott's presentation because how can he get those words to roll off his tongue so beautifully in such a fast clip that it was just sheer enjoyment. And I just wanted to crawl into his mind and his experiences, and but I also appreciated the lesson. I think the lesson of taking, one thing at a time until you reach that goal. I got it, and I appreciate that very much.
Southwest Airlines has a petite flight attendant, a little eeny beeny teeny tiny blonde gal. When all the passengers are off the plane, she climbs into the overhead luggage compartment, has the other flight attendants close the lid on her so she's hiding where you're about to put your carry-on. Can you imagine limping onto the plane after a long day? You just want to go home. You go to put your case of briefs into the overhead luggage compartment. When you flip open the lid, there's this little blonde in there saying, surprise! What one word would you suppose comes to your lips? I was hoping for wow, but there are some options on this example. Southwest Airlines understands that the whole point of micro-branding and micro-marketing is to get people to talk about you, a compelling, positive word of mouth. That's what we're going for. One day I got on the plane, they recognized me. I have to tell you why they recognized me. My first book was Positively Outrageous Service. Living in a little tiny town in Texas, a little country town at that, basically being a guy from a fried chicken business, my friends were impressed that I would read a book. That I wrote one was a big hairy deal, that they published it was a huge deal, and that Southwest Airlines, my first sale of my first book was to Southwest Airlines for 10,000 copies. Do you realize that makes Southwest Airlines my favorite airline? I don't care if they take off, just taxi for a while. Buy some more books. I get on the plane, a guy recognizes me, said, I know you, you're us. That's right, it's me, Gladys Knight. He said, no, you're the Positively Outrageous guy. I said, yes, what about it? He said, do you have a book I can give away? I said, sure do. So he said, let me handle it. We get up to cruise altitude. He takes my book, holds it right up by his face like the Crest commercials, gets on the PA system, and he says, ladies and gentlemen, we're fortunate today to have on board Southwest Airlines author-in-residence, Mr. T. Scott Gross. And if you'd like to win a copy of his latest book, Outrageous, Unforgettable Service, Guilt-Free Selling, it's easy. We're passing out cocktail napkins on which we want you to write your seat number, your row number, and your guess as to how many sheets of toilet paper it takes to stretch from the aft lavatory to the forward lavatory. And with that, this idiot comes down the aisle of a 737 unrolling a roll of toilet paper. Can you imagine some guy snoozing in 8C, wakes up just as they come by with a TP? My God, they're TPing a 737. But if you got off the plane and somebody said, how was your flight? Would you say it was okay? You'd say, no, there was a blonde in the overhead, and then they brought the toilet paper down the aisle. And they would haul your butt away. But you would talk about it. Now go home, work on your micro brand, and it will be you that they will be talking about. Thanks for spending your morning with me. Don't forget to love one another. Be sure.